Adonis Stevenson retains his WBC light heavyweight title with a 12-round majority draw against Badou Jack. This really was the classic tale of two halves, because Adonis Stevenson dominated the first half of the fight and Badou Jack dominated the second half of the fight. Jack started the fight extremely cautiously. He was very wary about getting tagged by Stevenson's big left hand while Stevenson was still fresh and had plenty of mustard on the left hand. So, very cautious from Jack. He just gave away the early rounds by allowing Stevenson to be active. But he was clearly trying to draw Stevenson's sting. He was clearly trying to get Stevenson to expend a lot of energy and take advantage of that in the second half of the fight, with Stevenson being 40 years old. And the strategy actually worked to a T, but Badou Jack maybe left it a little bit too late. I feel like he could have stepped on the gas against Stevenson a round or two earlier, because I think as early as the third or fourth round, Stevenson was already falling in and trading with Jack on the inside. And that's always a sign that Stevenson is getting tired when he starts doing that. He did that against Fonfara. He did that against Saki Obika, even Thomas Williams Jr. Once he starts falling inside like that, you need to take it to Stevenson. And Badou Jack just left it a little bit too late. So Stevenson took the early rounds just on activity, really. Stevenson was using his long reach, while his legs are fresh, he was using his long reach. Jack wasn't really landing anything at long range, wasn't really throwing much, and Stevenson was just being more active and, took the early rounds. I only gave Badou Jack one of the first 6 rounds. However, as I said in my pre-fight videos, if Badou Jack can survive the first 5 rounds without taking any serious punishment or without being intimidated, Stevenson's in trouble. And that's exactly what we saw, because not only did Badou Jack avoid taking any serious punishment in the first 6 rounds, or the first 5 rounds even, he avoided taking any serious punishment, at least to the head, for the entire fight. Adonis Stevenson never landed his big left hand to Badou Jack's head clean for the entire fight. Not even one clean full power left hand the whole fight. And you have to give massive credit to Badou Jack for that. For his defense, completely taking away Stevenson's most dangerous weapon. So great strategy from Badou Jack, great defense. The only time that Badou Jack was hurt was in the 10th round, I think, when Stevenson landed a left hand to his body. And at that point, Stevenson looked ready for the taking. In the second half of the fight, Stevenson's gas tank was finished. It was totally finished. At one stage, by about the 7th or 8th round, it looked as though Stevenson was surely going to get stopped, because he just had nothing. There was no power on his punches. He was just holding at every opportunity. He was just trying to survive. But he landed that left hand to the body in the 10th, and that managed to get him that round. That probably saved Stevenson from losing his title, that left hand. And this is why power is so important in boxing. It can be the difference between retaining your title and losing your title. And that one left hand to Jack's body saved Stevenson and allowed him to retain his belt, basically. As I say, Stevenson dominated the first half, but he wasn't beating Badou Jack up. He was just winning on work rate, wasn't really landing anything clean to the head. A few decent body shots here and there, but nothing clean to the head. Second half of the fight, Badou Jack dominated, but he really beat Stevenson up in the second half of the fight. He buzzed Stevenson numerous times, was bullying him up against the ropes numerous times. He really looked every bit his 40 years of age in the second half of the fight. And you really have to give Stevenson credit for showing so much heart at 40. Because a lot of 40-year-olds in a fight like that against a young guy, they'd be retiring on their stool. Their corners would be throwing in the towel. But Stevenson battled through. And perhaps it's because of the fact that he's got power, and perhaps his trainer, Javon Sugar Hill, thought, you know what? I got to give him a chance because I know he can punch. I've seen him knock guys out in the gym, late in the sparring sessions and whatnot. So that's probably why there was never those kind of conversations in the corner about him stopping it, because Stevenson does have that get out of jail card. But even then, in the second half of the fight, Stevenson was so tired that there was just nothing on most of his left hands. There was nothing on them. There was no power on them at all. But that one that he landed to the body in the 10th, there was some mustard on that. And Badou Jack was clearly hurt. He got hit with it. He tried to disguise it, but Stevenson recognized it. Stevenson, being a wily old veteran, he recognized that he'd hurt the guy and he pursued him. And Badou Jack backed off. In fact, Badou Jack still seemed to be a bit hurt from the body shot at the start of the 11th round. He still seemed to be trying to recover from that shot. So, all in all, it was a good fight. Definitely a tale of two halves. You can't complain with the draw because each half of the fight was so clear. Stevenson clearly won the first half. Badou Jack clearly won the second half. You know? So you really can't complain with the draw. Jack, though, will be kicking himself that he didn't take it to Stevenson earlier in the fight. You know, he was so cautious and so wary about that big left hand that he just overplayed it a little bit. You know, he could have won that fight if he just started his assault a bit earlier in the fight. And his trainer, Lou Duval, was actually imploring him earlier on in the fight to take it to Stevenson. You know, but he just wanted to make 100% sure that the left hand was over. You know, that all the power had gone from the left hand before he started his assault. So he did a good job of doing that. If it was a 15-round fight, he would have won. But it's a 12-round fight, you know. So, yeah, a good fight. But Stevenson looked every bit his 40 years. And even though he's escaped with his title, and justifiably, you know, you couldn't have argued for a close win for either guy. So a draw is fair. But Stevenson looks done to me at world level against the top guys. Because they're all going to know that he's got nothing after the first 4 or 5 rounds. Yeah, if they can just stay away from the big left hand for the first 4 or 5 rounds, they're going to be all over him in the second half. And here's another thing as well. Stevenson actually fell into Badou Jack's trap in the first half of this fight. Stevenson, being a puncher, is used to intimidating opponents. So when Badou Jack wasn't throwing much in the first half of the fight, Stevenson probably in his own mind thought, okay, I've got him intimidated. I need to press the issue. And maybe I can get him to quit or whatever. I need to bully him now. But Badou Jack wanted him to do that because Stevenson was expending energy. And I remember watching and seeing Stevenson throwing all these big left hands and these uppercuts and, you know, all kinds of punches. And I said on social media, I said, Stevenson is making a big mistake here throwing so many shots. He's making a big mistake wrestling with Badou Jack this early on, throwing so many punches because Badou Jack is not getting hit clean by these shots. So he's going to be fresh in the second half of the fight. You don't want to you don't want to be a 40-year-old man expending all that energy in the first half of the fight when nothing is landing clean against a young guy. You don't want to be doing that. At 40 years old, you need to be thinking about your stamina all the way through, from the first round to the 12th. Yeah? But Stevenson fell into that classic puncher's trap of believing that he got the guy intimidated. Oh, I can just step on the gas now and he's going to fall apart. But that's what Jack wanted him to do. Jack wanted him to step on the gas and expend all his energy. So, yeah, an interesting fight, a pretty good fight in the end. Stevenson showed a lot of heart and a lot of savvy, you know, a lot of old man tricks and holding and all kinds of stuff to get through the second half. But, yeah, good fight and a fair result in the end. Badou Jack was complaining a little bit in a post-fight interview, but nah. That wasn't a controversial draw. He might feel hard done by, but nah, that's some BS, man. He gave away far too many of the early rounds to be complaining about the result. And I know he did beat Stevenson up, and Stevenson didn't beat him up, but fights are scored on a round-by-round basis. It doesn't matter who wins big rounds, it's just who wins how many rounds. Yeah. Steve Gray in the post-fight interview said, I think it was Steve Gray who said it, he said to Badou Jack, the rounds you won by a mile, but the rounds that Stevenson won, he won by, you know, a couple yards. But at the end of the day, you know, that doesn't mean anything on the scorecards. It's scored round by round. And yeah, basically, Badou Jack just allowed Stevenson to steal too many of the early rounds on activity. And, you know, that's when Stevenson's fresh. That's when his legs are good. That's when he can control things at long range with those ridiculously long arms. But once he slows down, just like I said in my preview videos, Stevenson is a bit of a sitting duck. You know, he is a bit of a sitting duck when he slows down. You don't have the stamina no more. You don't have the energy no more. And I said numerous times, especially on social media, Stevenson don't have 12 good rounds in him. He just don't. He can go 12, and we just saw him go 12 again, but he can't go 12 at a hard pace. I mean, he just don't have it in him anymore at 40 years old. He has to cheat his way through 12 rounds at this point, because he's not going to be able to go at a hard pace with a young guy like that. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the fight. Definitely close. I can't see how anyone can argue with a draw, because it was that close. But let me know what you thought of it. And where does Stevenson go from here? Stevenson is really going to have to look at himself and decide whether he wants to continue in boxing. Because, yeah, he's way over the hill, clearly. And for someone who's way over the hill, it's really indicative of how good Stevenson used to be. The fact that he's 40 and clearly over the hill, but still went 12 rounds with Badou Jack and got a draw, that shows how good the guy used to be. You know, years ago, 32, 33-year-old Stevenson, he would have beat Badou Jack. But at this age, you know, it was very, very tough going for him. And Jack is a guy moving up from super middleweight, and he's not a puncher. If Stevenson had been in there against, you know, one of the punchers, he would have been in very, very serious trouble in the second half of that fight. But having said that, Jack is one of the smartest guys out there in the light heavyweight division. He's a very smart fighter because he doesn't have big punching power, so he has to be smart. And he was ultra cautious in the early part of the fight. Would Kovalev or Beterbiev or Bivol be as ultra cautious in the early rounds? Because that's the only window of opportunity for Stevenson to beat any of the top light heavyweights. You know, Bivol, Kovalev, Beterbiev, even Vodcek. The only way Stevenson's going to beat any of those guys if he's is in the first 4 or 5 rounds. If he don't do it then, he's done. But will those guys be as cautious as Jack was in the first 4 or 5 rounds in order to avoid Stevenson's left hand when he's fresh? Because if they get too ambitious, someone out there could still get clocked. You understand? There's a reason why Badou Jack never got caught with a clean Stevenson left hand with anything near full power, because he was super, super careful. Would those other guys be as careful? I don't know. You let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. It's happening. I'm out.